For many years, we have been waving the flag of localization high and proud. Saudi Arabia was one of the first GCC countries to have a nationalization program. We want Saudi companies run by Saudi employees. Do you believe in that? I really hope that you do. It's a very important agenda, and it's aligned to the Vision 2030 and the future of the country. Now, if you're in HR, you know that Saudization is easier said than done. You are looking for Saudi talent, yes, but they're not just hard to find. Sometimes they're simply not there. Once, a while back, a few years back, I was in Oman working on a project with a governmental agency. And I learned an interesting fact that I will not forget. More than 50% of the Omani population is under 30. What this does is it puts pressure on the Omani government and the private sector to provide jobs for all these people. The economy needs to expand to create new opportunities. We can say that in Oman we have too much talent available. Elsewhere in the world, they have different problems. Take Japan, for example. Only 27% of the population is under 30. This is almost half the Omani number. The Japanese government and the private sector have the opposite challenge. They have more jobs for the future than there are people. Here, the economy needs to, find people because the lack of talent can stop the growth of the Japanese economy. We can say that in Japan, we have too little talent available. And I know that now you're wondering, what are the numbers for Saudi? In Saudi Arabia, according to the latest research from 2019, 47% of the population is under 30 years old. So it's not exactly 50, but it's almost. And like Oman, supposedly, we have too much talent available. And in Saudi Arabia, we also have the same pressure to provide jobs. And I can say that we do see a government that is committed to providing these jobs and a growing private sector that is eager to employ young Saudi talents. However, if you are in HR, you know. If you've ever worked on a Saudization program, you know. If you've ever been a manager looking for people, you know. You have the jobs, you look for the Saudi talents, but you cannot find them. Where are they? Mostly, they're not always there. So what is the gap? We have plenty of youth in Saudi Arabia. We're lucky. That means that our economy can continue to grow and thrive. The challenge is we have youth. We don't have talents. Why? And not enough Saudis are maybe pursuing qualifications that are needed. Some don't go to university. Others go, but they don't pick the right field of study or the major that the country needs. And in order to really understand this gap, I want you to take a journey with me. A journey into the life of a teenager. Salman is 16. He wakes up in the morning, checks his phone, then gets up, brushes his teeth, gets dressed, maybe takes a bite and gets on the bus to school. At school, he is mostly bored. He talks to his friends in class, sometimes, gets distracted and loses track of the lessons. And when it comes to his studies, he doesn't always do well, specifically in the challenging subjects like science and math. He also finds them challenging and boring. When he comes home, he opens his computer and spends the rest of his day online, playing games, chatting with friends, finishing up some homework. And this day is not just Salman's day. Nearly all teenagers spend around 6 hours a day on leisure. They have 6 hours to waste. And they spend at least 3 of these hours looking into a screen. Next year, Salman has to think about the major that he's going to choose and what he's going to study. But he doesn't really know what he wants and what he likes. He knows that he will stay away from the science and the math because He thinks they're boring, but he also doesn't do very well in them. And he is most likely to fall upon a generic field like business so that he can get a job like his parents want him to. The day in the life of a teenager tells us that kids spend more time on social media and technology than they do with their parents or in school or doing any other thing. Okay, so what does this mean? This talk is not about kids and technology, although that's an important topic. What this really means is that teenagers do not have enough opportunities to explore future careers. What they spend their time on, their school, their friends, their screens, it does not include information about jobs and careers. I mean, TikTok is entertaining, but it's not informative. And in the computer games, they might learn how to shoot or fight, but not make a life decision. Think of your own self as a teenager. Do you remember? When you picked your career, how did that happen? Most likely, you were underprepared. Maybe you discussed the topic with your parents, but most likely you felt pressured by their opinions rather than informed. And this is a global issue. In the US, about 80% of students end up changing their major at least once, according to the National Center for Education Statistics. And on average, college students can change their major at least 3 times before they finish their college degrees. Now, we don't have the real numbers for Saudi, so I don't know. But what I know is from my experience, students are not prepared to pick a major when they need to make that decision. And some students start college with a major that their parents or relatives picked for them or advised them to do. And they don't know that actually changing your major, if it's too late for you to change, can actually waste a lot of their time and can take them, a lot of time to change. Sometimes they get stuck. Mahabba is one such person. Mahabba is an Emirati computer science graduate, or as she likes to describe herself, I'm a coder. Mahabba studied for 4 years at the medical college before finally deciding it did not fit her. When she talks about programming, she is filled with passion and excitement. Her eyes really light up. And she struggled to make the shift between medicine and computer science. First, because she didn't even know that programming and computer science was even a field that she could study, but also because there was that family expectation to become a doctor. Now, in most cases, students like Mahabba struggle to make that decision because they don't know how to confront the people they love about the change that they want. Mahabba ended up standing up for what she wants, and she picked a field of technology. And you know what? In the GCC, we have an undersupply of graduates in these fields. And graduates in technology and science will be more in demand as the economy becomes more digital. Mahabba just never explored that option. She didn't even know it exists. Science fields in general are in demand in Saudi. With an economy that depends on oil and gas and the connected industries, we need graduates to fill jobs in these industries. And I know the economy is going to diversify and shift towards being more of a knowledge economy by 2030. Still, we expect tech jobs and science specializations will still be needed. So here is the picture of what we have. Companies need talents to run effectively, but the talents are not available. Where are they? They have picked the wrong major. How can we bridge the gap? Now, us in companies working in talent management or L&D, it's easy for us to say, you know what? It is not our job to manage the labor market. And that is true. But isn't it also your job to attract the right talent for your organization? And if a teenager like Salman spends most of his time in his own world, in his own bubble, he will never know about the right jobs to pick from. And the opportunity is lost for him and for you. So here is a question. You're in L&D or talent management and you're working in your organization. And you're thinking about leadership. You say, I have all of these employees. How do I ensure the potential future leaders of my organization? What do you do? Here's what you do. You create a leadership pipeline, you create a succession plan, and a leadership development program. Isn't that what you're doing? And you train and you develop the leaders of tomorrow from the talents within your organization. We all do that. That is great. But here's another question. Maybe you want to think of the future talents for your organization that are not yet within your organization. What do you do then? Do you look out of your company and start creating a talent pipeline to get them in? Do you come up with a plan or a training or an educational program to get them through the door? Most likely you are not doing this. But you need to start thinking of that. If you think your job stops at the door of your organization and you don't step out and reach to the job market and start training the youth of today, you will not have the talents you need tomorrow. This challenge to find talents and get them ready to your industry and your field is not new, and it's not unique to Saudi. Global companies like Microsoft and Google have sponsored many programs that aim to teach the public, or some certain groups in the public, valuable skills, such as tech skills. The aim is to empower some groups like women or the youth, to get them to gain interest and eventually learn skills and make them potential employers of these companies. Now, why would the tech giants do that? After all, it takes money to do that. Well, because talent is hard to find. And if these companies want to continue to grow, they cannot wait for the market to give them the talent they need. The market will not give them the talent they need because there is a disconnect between the teenager and the market. And by stepping out and reaching to the students at the right time when they are young, they will be able to foster the right talents for the future of their organization. And all of this training for our students and youth is part of a trend in L&D that we've known about for the past few years. It is the trend to provide training to non-employee groups. A CIPD report from 2015 highlights that actually 2/3 of our organizations are doing this. They provide training for non-employee groups. And from these companies that are doing this, 1/3 provide training to students. However, when we zero in on certain kinds of organizations, for example, half of manufacturing organizations provide a training to students. Now you might be thinking, why? Well, because students globally are less interested in manufacturing and production, unless you go out, unless you step out and reach to them. At the same time, however, the CIPD report points out that the portion of private service organizations offering training to students has been declining over the years. And what does this mean? It means that maybe the government and big organizations are providing these trainings, but not the private ones. And this is a concerning trend, especially given the rates of youth unemployment globally and in our markets. And now with COVID affecting the economy, the job market, if we really don't step out and reach to students and the youth, it means we might risk losing their potential for good. In our part of the world, many youth programs do exist. That's great. They support youth in orienting towards certain careers and stepping out in the right direction. Many, however, are government programs. But there is room for all of us to do something. I have been lucky to work on L&D projects that target students for several years now. From a technology project to one on tourism, I've had the goal to help the youth develop their goals. And I'd like to share with you a few case studies from what we've worked on so you can have a practical sense of what we've been doing. Let's take an example from a tourism project we've done. You know, the GCC has been growing its tourism for years. In the UAE, one challenge is that few Emiratis are employed in the tourism sector. This was concerning to Sharjah Commerce and Tourism Development Authority, or STTDA. Why? Well, in many developed tourism countries, such as in Europe, tourism is not the ultimate goal of employment. So we don't necessarily want all the Emiratis to work in tourism. But tourism can provide early employment opportunities for the youth. So in those jobs, early jobs, they can learn skills and insights. And a great benefit comes from working in these industries, even if not for long, but only for a short period of time. And even when they are young, there could be lots of benefits. There are also lots of opportunities for these youth to grow in the tourism. So yes, maybe they don't want to start out with a waiter job, but eventually in restaurants, hotels, tour companies, they're all part of the industry. And if a young Emirati understood how these organizations work, they don't have to be a waiter, but they can become a restaurant owner or a hotel manager or a tour operator one day. Yet, if they never approach these fields thinking to themselves, I for sure don't want to be a waiter, then they miss out the opportunity of being more than that. And from another angle, tourists visiting the UAE and Sharjah might spend days or weeks in the UAE and never meet an Emirati. And therefore, they miss out the sense of culture, which is very unique and a big part of the tourism in this world. And this can affect the touristic experience. Putting all of that in mind, SCTDA was thinking of the Emiratis. They're not employed in tourism. The Emiratis did not understand the industry and so therefore won't grow or invest in it. And the Emiratis won't work as tour guides, which can affect the tourism experience. Also, on top of the three core issues, SCTDA felt that every Emirati had kind of a duty to represent their country. And learning at a young age how to meet tourists and act as a tour guide can be helpful, because this young person will now grow and one day become the CEO of a major international company or an ambassador, and they will know how to truly represent their country. So, knowing this background, what did SCTDA do? Together, we came up with a tour guide bootcamp program. We called it Hayakum. In this program, the youth spend an entire week at a hotel, exploring the job and duties and skills of a tour guide. And we divided the day into thirds. So the first third was in the class, the second third was on the sites, the touristic sites, and the third was what we called edutainment. So in the morning, we'd go in the class and have a very fun-filled interactive session with knowledge and skills about being a tour guide. We filled it with exercises, including virtual reality and a lot of experiential learning. In the afternoon, it was time to apply some of that learning. So we went out into the city, going to all the touristic sites where the students learned about these sites, but also practiced being a tour guide there. And in the evening, we went back to the hotel for fun edutainment sessions, from team building to even a movie night about the late Sheikh Zayed. The students really immersed themselves into an experience, and they kind of learned without knowing that they were learning. Now, the Hayakum program was designed and launched 3 years ago, and it has been running every year since, including this year. It ran online with COVID. The students who took the program have been volunteering with SCTDA in touristic events such as the Sharjah Light Festival, and they truly represent their country. It is still too soon to tell if any of these students will end up in tourism, maybe have their own restaurant or their own company or work in the tourism government sector. But what I can tell you for sure is that we planted the seed, and we planted it in the right way. The numbers we collected do show an increase in interest in tourism, and tourism jobs compared to before the program. And this leaves us assured that at least we are doing something. It's a step in the right direction to connect to our youth. I'd like to share with you another program. This time we moved from tourism to manufacturing and even science. We designed a project for SABIC. And we know in the numbers, and I want to show you the numbers of the great results that we achieved. So let me start by saying, SABIC is one of the best employers of Saudis and really fosters great talents. SABIC has been providing a valuable sponsorship and educational opportunities for Saudi graduates interested in the many fields that SABIC needs. And the issue is, as we mentioned, not enough Saudis are interested in manufacturing, and so not enough are available for these programs and these jobs. So what did we do? We worked with SABIC on what they called the mini SABIC program. The idea was to give students an overview of SABIC, entire SABIC. That's mini. So who did we target? We targeted teenagers, high school students, the sons and daughters of SABIC employees, and even the public. SABIC had been carrying such initiatives with students for years, and in 2019, it was epic. The program took place over 3 weeks. Each week covered an aspect of SABIC's work. The first week was manufacturing, the second week was R&D, or research and development, and the third was business. And the reason for this division is that we knew not all of the students are going to end up in the manufacturing side, but maybe they will end up in the business side of SABIC, and so we wanted all of them to get a clear idea. Nearly 400 young men and ladies from 3 cities in Saudi joined our program. At the start, many were doubtful. You know, the teenagers, they already go to school, and that's not too engaging. It's a little bit boring for them. And we wanted to ensure that our experience was way better than that. So what did we do? Students don't generally like science. So in our program, we showed them the magic of science. We made the science of manufacturing fun in many ways, including live, real experiments that were super fun for the students to do. We also know that students like to spend time on screens. So we used technology to help them learn in a fun way, using virtual reality and computer simulations. What else do we know? We know that students like to play games. So we added games and competitions so that the students can have fun while learning. We also know that students don't really want to hear theory and information, but they'd rather apply it. So we made the entire program revolve around a project where the students carried it throughout the 3 weeks and finally presented it on the last day. And I am describing it, I know I worked on this project, but it was truly magical. And the students really engaged. Now you might be skeptical and say, okay, really? They really enjoyed this? So let me tell you what the students thought. The satisfaction score was 90%. I dare you to find teenagers to give you 90% on anything. And when we asked them if they would recommend this program, also 90% said they would. How many of them would recommend their school? Now, what about if they learned? Well, the results showed that they learned a lot of things about manufacturing, about science, about business. But the ultimate question is, did the program increase their interest in a future career? And 89% of them indicated that the program had helped them think about their future career. How lovely, we got them to start thinking. And 84% of them indicated that the program made them think of studying and working in manufacturing in the future. So what happens next? Mini SABIC was not a program run in vacuum, and this is what I love about SABIC. The top students who show skill and interest in the field are encouraged to pursue an education in the field, so they are put within the scholarship program and are offered opportunities to study. And I know, maybe they won't all end up in SABIC. But what I know for sure is that we nudged them in the right direction. Some of these students did not even know what manufacturing was. And yet I know that SABIC one day will employ many of these young, talented men and ladies. And by stepping out of its door, SABIC, with its L&D team, was able to reach through the market and design that talent pipeline of youth into SABIC in the future. When I was a teenager, which was only last year, okay, not really, I struggled to pick the right career. Like Mahabba, I thought of medicine influenced by my parents. And when I started to change my mind, I was around the second year of uni. It was too difficult for me to shift without wasting time. Also, didn't want medicine, but I didn't know what I liked. But that summer, I got an internship at a training company. And working in L&D and training design helped me realize my real passion for the field. While it was too late for me to change my major, so I still have a biology degree under my belt, I did shift my career into L&D. Some certifications here and there, an MBA. I got more qualifications. But actually everything was easier from that point of knowing what I wanted to do. And the internship to me had been my lifeline to pick the career that really fit me. In all my years since, in L&D, I never once thought of L&D as the thing we provide only to our employees. I know from my experience that if I hadn't been introduced to the field at 19, I don't know what I would have been doing today. And if we don't provide the educational opportunities, whether through internships or training programs, to the youth at the right moment, our companies will not have the talents they need tomorrow. This talk is titled, Are You Training the Right People? So let me rephrase and ask, do you only train your employees? Do you only offer learning and development opportunities to those who are inside your organization? You probably answer yes, especially if you're a private organization. This is such a shame. Your L&D is only behind your closed doors. So how do you expect talents to walk through the door? The journey towards the Saudi vision of 2030 requires developing the talents we need for the next stage. This can't only be the job of schools and universities. This is also the work of L&D. And if you are in L&D today, think of the following. And answer honestly, yeah? Do you want Saudi talents in the future of your organization? Are there certain jobs that will be hard to find in the future, like technology or science jobs? And will this gap in talent affect your organization? What are you waiting for? The talents of tomorrow are the youth of today. And if you'd like to know more about our case study with SABIC and learn from our experience designing it, do get in touch. I will hang around to answer your questions in the comment box, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation about this with you.